Our next speaker is Helen O'Shea. Helen has previously been with, saves me doing all the talking, but has previously been with DePaul UK as a trustee, and more recently has just come on as the chair of DePaul International in mid-2023. So we've been ambushing her every opportunity we get since then. Had her over for the Casa Nua lunch, and then grabbed her for this. And without further ado, I'm going to hand straight over to Helen.
It's very disconcerting to see such a big picture of yourself behind you. Luckily, I'm looking this way, so that's good. Dermot, thanks very much for the introduction, and David, thanks very much for inviting me, and Elaine for logistics and everything. It's amazing to be in a place with so many DePaul people. You can feel the energy, and you can feel the buzz, and it's brilliant, and it's such a fantastic building. And if you stay long enough, you can watch Toy Story. It's just, what's not to like? So I'm absolutely delighted to be here. And as Dermot said, I'm new to this role. I only came into post as chair of DePaul International in late April of this year, so it's all new to me. But I have been involved before. So I thought I'd just tell you a little bit about my background and how I ended up standing here today. So I'm Helen. I'm from Cardiff originally, although I now live in London and have done for the last 27 years for my sins. But I have Irish credentials, or at least I have Irish in-laws. I'm married to an Irishman. And so I've spent quite a lot of time visiting relatives in Dundalk and in County Meath, and I go on holiday a lot in Kerry, for which I'm very lucky. And I met my husband in 1990 at Ireland Wales Rugby International in Dublin. Probably love at double vision. I think Ireland won, and at the moment we're both supporting Wales and Ireland in the Rugby World Cup until such time as there might be a semi-final clash, and then we'll be on different sofas or possibly in different buildings. We'll see how that goes. So what led me here? I'm not someone who had aspirations to have what they call a portfolio of being a chair of different organisations. That's never appealed to me. I'm a barrister and a legal writer by background, by trade. So why am I here? It goes back probably about 20-odd years, 22 years ago, something like that, I was sitting in my local parish church in Mass, and I had 3 boys under 5 with me, and I was trying to operate crowd control. There certainly wasn't much praying going on. And somebody from the local St. Vincent de Paul group got up and made a lectern address asking for members. And I don't know what it was, but there was something in there that just got to me. There was something about what they said that just appealed to me. So I joined that local SVP group, and I have been a committed follower of St. Vincent and his works and everything that you do ever since. But then I had no aspirations to do anything other than help locally. But through chance encounters and cutting a long story short, I ended up being asked to be on the St. Vincent de Paul board in the UK, and through that also onto the DePaul UK board. Then I was asked to stand as SVP National President, to which I gave the only rational answer, which was no, of course not. And why not? I was too busy. I had work and family to deal with. I wasn't the right person. I didn't fit the mould. I wasn't holy enough. Other people could do it better. It was too hard. Now, all of those things were completely true. But eventually, something nagged at me. I believed in the mission. I knew the difference that encountering people in the right way when they needed help made to them. I knew that things needed changing. And because it was hard, why was I expecting somebody else to do it? So having grappled with my conscience and lost, I ended up becoming the first female president of the SVP in the UK. Now, Ireland was way ahead, already had female presidents, far more advanced nation, obviously, in many ways. But once that term was finished, I was asked to sit on the board of DePaul International and then to become DPI chair. And this time I didn't hesitate. And the reason I said yes to being involved at this level with DePaul is because I really believe in the charism. And I take inspiration from the life and works of St. Vincent. There is so much injustice, poverty, hardship, war in the world today. The world needs St. Vincent, and it needs all of you who follow his example. And it gives me my moral compass. It says, here are some clear instructions that help with decision-making. And I've really taken that on board, and I'm sure you do all the time. So what are they? To help the poorest of the poor, as in Vincent's words, Rory alluded to it, help those people nobody else is helping. And Vincent did this. He helped galley slaves and orphans and widows. Father Vitali, who you'll know, who is our CEO in Ukraine, he did this. He describes how when war broke out and there was so much devastation and loss and limited resources with which to help people, he had to prioritize and decide who to help. And he went back to that, help the poorest of the poor, and made the decision that the first people they would help would be those who were left behind because they were infirm or poor or old and couldn't get out of the country or couldn't move. So that was his moral compass, and he was following his own instructions. The next Vincentism, advocate against unjust laws, and we've heard Rory talking about it earlier. St. Vincent influenced the decision makers of his time. He spoke to the King of France about the conditions of galley slaves. And we have to do the same, because charity and justice go hand in hand. We can't keep trying to house people whilst doing nothing to change the system that perpetuates homelessness. Advocacy is part of our work, whether it's the vitally important global work that the Institute of Global Homelessness does with the United Nations, whether it's at a national level, kind of things we heard Rory talking about earlier, and the great job DePaul Island does at calling out injustice in the Republic and in Northern Ireland on systems and policies, or whether it's what you do for an individual in your services, that when you recognize their value and you fight their corner to help them improve their situation. Last Thursday was a momentous day for the fight against global homelessness, because the Secretary-General of the UN published his report to the General Assembly on homelessness. In it, the Secretary-General recommended that the United Nations system set a global target aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals on ending homelessness, establish a comprehensive global dashboard, and present regular biannual reports to the General Assembly. Now, this is huge. It's huge because homelessness has never been acknowledged like this at UN level before. And it's a testament to the incredible work that has been going on lobbying at UN level by the Institute of Global Homelessness, by the FAMVIN Homelessness Alliance, and by DePaul. And everything you do feeds into that. St. Vincent says we should strive to keep our hearts open to the suffering of others. And we have to strive to keep the hearts of others open too, particularly in a political climate where loving thy neighbour sometimes seems like a distant concept. Perseverance and constancy. St. Vincent was big on these two. Perseverance, which leads us to attain the goal, whether that be ending homelessness worldwide or finding move-on accommodation for a client. And constancy, the trait that helps us to overcome difficulties. You don't give up on people. We don't tick boxes. We're here for the long run, and we're ambitious for those we serve. Unwavering dedication to serving those who find themselves on the margins of society for many, many reasons. Collaboration. St. Vincent invited others to be part of the mission by asking aristocrats for money or property, by inviting people from all walks of life to get involved and do their part. We can't do it alone. Fighting homelessness is a huge task, whether you're trying to house one person or ask the UN to call it out. So we have to inspire others to be part of the mission and to get on board and to work with them to achieve our ends. Adaptability. Vincent said, "Charity must never look backwards, but always to the front, because the number of good deeds already accomplished is very small, while present and future hardships remain infinite." Isn't that true? And we have to adapt to changing needs. And what brilliant examples we've seen of this from around the DePaul group. From mobile shower units in Paris, to Night Stop in the UK, to a whole wartime humanitarian mission in Ukraine, to DePaul Island recognizing the need to be involved in direct provision. The moral compass is there. Change when you need to, and the direction is clear. Do what must be done. We're talking about leadership and hearing about amazing leaders today. And the servant leadership concept is very Vincentian, very much part of our values. Servant leaders serve others, serve the greater good, as well as offering leadership. That's fine in theory. What does it mean in practice? What does it mean for me in my role? What does it mean for you in all of your roles? I came into this role following on from John Darley, who had been chair of DePaul International for many years. And I'm a great admirer of John, and he's a mentor and a friend. But how do you build on his legacy while knowing that change is also good? And how do I serve others in this role? So I read and write papers, I chair meetings, I go and advocate training, I read around the subject, I look at strategy and governance. But I don't greet the person who's experiencing homelessness for the first time and who's knocking on your door. I do continue to encounter people suffering from poverty through visits to services and also through my own continued work with the St. Vincent de Paul Society in my own area. But I think it's always about having that person who comes to the hostel door at the forefront of your mind when considering strategy, policy, decision-making, governance. Letting the poor be our masters, as Vincent said, in the way that we think, to ensure that person, that valuable human who needs a chance and a helping hand to a more fruitful life, is there in front of us when we make decisions. And servant leadership is also about listening. Listening to the person at the hostel door, listening to the staff member meeting that person, listening to new ideas from around our DePaul group, listening to sector leaders and politicians, understanding the science of homelessness, and never being afraid to speak out for the people we serve and for what is right. Hopes and aspirations. What are the hopes and aspirations ahead of us that I see as I move into this role? So these are a list, and there are no solutions, but answers on a postcard or on, what's it called? Slido would be very welcome. Homelessness is increasing across the globe. The United Nations report is a massive step forward, with nation-states being called upon to measure homelessness according to an agreed definition and to seek human rights-based solutions. But what more can the DePaul Group do to respond to it? And being part of that international organisation is really crucial. You're not just operating on the island of Ireland. You're part of a global fight against homelessness. And that's huge. Is expansion geographically an answer? Should we do more where we already are? Should we do less where we already are, but do it better? Should we have a presence in Africa, South America, Asia? Are we too Europe and North American focused? How do we fund expansion? How do we fund core costs? How do we ensure our staff are paid properly for the incredible work that they do? For me personally, coming in fresh to the role, how do I get to know the clients and staff and volunteers and trustees at the heart of DePaul? A massive thank you to David and DePaul Island for being so welcoming and inclusive in inviting me to events. You make it easy, so thank you. But how do I ensure that happens much further away in the US or in places where I don't speak English, in Croatia? That's the challenge. How do we balance the need to be engaged and to come together and to foster a sense of togetherness in an international organisation with our climate change responsibilities. Face-to-face engagements are so enabling, but at what cost? What should we do about that? How do we get governance oversight right? Governance is essential to enable everyone at DePaul to do their work, to protect our clients and our staff. But where is the balance that ensures safe compliance, but also enables and encourages local ownership and innovation? And how do we continue to ensure our decision-making is informed and led by people with lived experience, by our service users, and by the people we serve? And it's wonderful to hear about the big voice and the efforts you're making here. These are challenges that are formidable. The Secretary-General's report said, "Homelessness is an affront to human dignity, a key principle on which international human rights law is based. A human rights-based approach to homelessness, therefore, sees persons experiencing homelessness not primarily as people in need of charity or social welfare, but as rights holders entitled to the same protection of their rights as any other person." And this is so true, and it aligns perfectly with our DePaul values. And if we're led by our values, by our mission, by our charism, by our moral compass, then I believe we will together find ways of meeting the challenges that we face, because that is what must be done. So finally, I'd like to thank you. A big thank you to all of you, the staff and volunteers at DePaul Island, for all you do. You really are leading the way home in terms of advocacy, in your programs that are meeting emerging needs, and most importantly, in the love and care you show to each person you help as you lead them towards home. And I'm delighted and honoured to be associated with your work. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the day.